So we have done, as I said, we did the gamma delta T cells, we did the alpha beta T cells, and we did the natural killer T cell, which is a semi-variant of the alpha beta T cell. The last category of cells, which we had not taken up till now in such a conspicuous manner, is the natural killer cells. This cell also belongs to the lymphoid progeny, but are somewhat different from the other three category of T lymphocytes, as well as somewhat different from the B lymphocytes. Now, coming to the natural killer cells, they are morphologically similar to lymphocytes, but more granular in appearance, and the granules contain azurophilic cytoplasmic granules. They are not phagocytic like the neutrophils, neither they are non-adherent like the macrophages. So they are neither phagocytic like the neutrophils, nor adherent population like the macrophages. These are distinguished from the natural killer T cells, B cells, and T cells by their lack of expression of the T cell receptor or the B cell receptor. So this is very evident. If you look into the other three population of the T lymphocytes, they have this defined T cell receptor. The chains might vary, but they do not have any T cell receptor, neither do have a B cell receptor. Interestingly, NK cells are found at their highest frequency in the peripheral blood, spleen, liver, and they also tend to congregate in the mucosal epithelium and are important components of the bulge and the node. Very low levels of NK cells occur actually in thymus. The lifespan of a mature NK cell in the absence of any further activation is 7 to 10 days. Coming to the receptors they share, the NK cell shares the expression of several markers such as the interleukin 2 receptor beta, the CD2 molecule, the CD28 molecule. One point that is mentioned worthy here is the interleukin 2 receptor alpha is not expressed on NK cells, allowing them to bind to interleukin 2 with only moderate affinity. Interestingly, even though they do not express T cell receptors, NK cells express the CD3 zeta on their surfaces. So they have this CD3 zeta chain. The CD3 zeta is often associated or found in close association with the Fc gamma R3A. Let me show you the receptor. So you can see this is the CD3 zeta molecule, and this is the very famous receptor of the NK cells, which is termed as the Fc gamma receptor R3A or CD16. It's a marker molecule for NK cell, which can bind to Fc receptors of immunoglobulin molecules, and it is via this receptor that the NK cell performs the phenomena of antibody mediated or antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity. CD8 molecules are found on some NK cells. Other important NK activatory molecules are the CD94 and the NKG2 gene. And there is also the presence of the killer inhibitory receptors on NK cells. Now, so if you look into the model of development of NK cells, so is the NK T precursor bone marrow, and if you remember, this is the cytokine. IL-15, FLT3 ligand, pro-natural killer cell, IL-15, immature natural killer cell, further expression or further modulation by IL-15 results in the formation of mature NK cells. The three basic functions of the NK cell is cytolysis, that includes natural cytotoxicity. The second function is the ADCC, and the third function is the immune regulation by cytokine secretion. So now let's talk about the natural cytotoxicity. I would like all of you to concentrate on this particular feature. NK cell is an important cell of the innate immunity, and it exhibits its killer activity much earlier than the killer activity of the alpha beta cytotoxic T lymphocyte population. If you remember, for the cytotoxic T lymphocytes to have a killer property, they need to be activated by a licensed dendritic cell that takes a time span of 7 days. Whereas the NK cells, as I said, are modulators of the innate immunity. So their cytotoxic activity is upregulated quite earlier than the cytotoxic activity of the CTLs. Now, in normal condition, this is a normal cell and this is a natural killer cell. We just now I said that the two famous receptors, apart from CD16, the two famous receptors observed on the NK cells are, as you can see from this picture, the activatory receptor and the inhibitory receptor. So here the NK cells have the activatory receptor and the inhibitory receptor. Now here the green ones, as you can see, the green color are the inhibitory receptor and the red color are the activatory receptor. Okay. No, so I think so I went wrong with the color. The red color are the inhibitory receptor. Okay. Now what happens in case of cytolysis by the NK cells? Initially, the NK cells binds to the normal cells by the interaction between the beta 2 integrin LFA1 on the NK cell and the ICAM1 on the potential target. Once the NK cell binds with its target cell, the NK cell now starts scanning the potential target cell for the expression of MHC class 1. So the MHC class 1 molecules now become engaged with the inhibitory receptors. Once the MHC, you can see the MHC class 1 molecules are becoming engaged with the inhibitory receptors. So since the MHC class 1 molecule becomes engaged with the inhibitory receptors, this triggers a dominant signal that further inhibits NK cell activation. So the presence of the inhibitory receptors on the NK cell scans for the MHC class 1 molecules on the normal cell, and if the inhibitory receptors finds that there are many MHC class 1 receptors present on the normal cell, they interact, and as a result the NK cells gets inhibited.
Ma'am.
So now what happens? How does NK cell then gets activated? It has been observed that when the host cell no longer expresses self MHC class 1, again I'm repeating, when the host cell that no longer expresses self MHC class 1 but do express the activatory receptor ligand, they're expressing the activatory receptor ligands. So the host cells are expressing the activatory receptor ligands, the MHC activation is brought into action. So the inhibitory receptors interact with the MHC class 1, the activatory receptors interact with the activation ligands of the targets. These ligands are not upregulated unless and until there is need for destruction of this cell. Once the activatory ligands are expressed by the target cell and the activatory receptors of the natural killer cell binds with them, then what happens? The natural killer cells simply behaves now as a cytotoxic T lymphocyte. It induces the death of the target cell by the perforin granzyme mediated apoptosis in a very similar manner to that we had studied earlier. In this case, the perforin and the granzyme granules are released. The perforin and the granzyme released from the granules are taken up by the target cell. The perforin and the granzyme released by the granules are taken up by the target cell, possibly by pinocytosis or by the mannose-6 receptor mediated endocytosis, and captured in endolysosomal vesicles. As you can see, these are the granules. These granules are released and they're taken up by the target cells and by, as I said, by pinocytosis or by mannose-6 phosphate receptor mediated endocytosis. Initially, if we look into the signaling pathway of the NK cells, the initial signal transduction is done by the SYK group of kinase instead of ZAP70. If you remember, ZAP70 was essential for alpha beta TCR signaling. But for signaling of NK cells, it is the SYK kinase. And the cytotoxicity signaling or the cytotoxic signaling of NK cell is also independent of RAS. Instead, you can see that the PI3K is activated, which in turn activates this complex RAC and VAV1, followed by the activation of ERK and the upregulation of the cytotoxic granules, after which the granules are liberated, taken up by the target cell in vesicles, and the vesicles are then released, as was discussed in the case of cytotoxic T lymphocytes. So the mechanism is more or less same here. So that was how the NK cell, this picture was a summary of how the NK cells actually identify a cell which needs to survive and identifies a cell which needs to die. So as you can see, a cell which needs to die has a down-regulated MHC molecule, and the cell which needs to and an upregulated activation ligands. But a normal cell has an upregulated MHC class 1 molecules. Now coming to, so that was the first function, cytolysis or cytotoxicity. The second function, as I said, was antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity. In this case, the FC region of the IgG antibodies bound to infected target cell can engage the FC gamma R3A, which is a 70 kilodalton membrane anchored glycoprotein. This receptor ligand interaction leads to the association of, as you can see, the LCK and other SRC kinases with the FC gamma R3A CD3 zeta complex. Just keep in mind that the FC gamma R3A is the CD16, which is associated with the CD3 zeta chain. So here, the signaling mechanism will be very similar to the TCR signaling mechanism, because in case of the TCR signaling mechanism, if you remember, the signals used to percolate through the CD3 zeta chain. And ultimately, a result of this signaling cascade flowing downstream is the activation of a number of messengers, followed by ultimately activation of the desired genes. When the signal is passing via the activation ligand and the activation receptor, ZAP70 is not roped in. But when signaling is passing via the CD16 molecule, and since CD3 zeta chain is involved, the ZAP70 is roped in, as also the RAS is also involved. So the two signaling mechanisms are a bit different. Now coming to the final function of NK cells, that was the function of immune modulation. So you can see this is a resting NK cell. Now, whenever there is the presence of pro-inflammatory cytokine, so a pro-inflammatory cytokine may be secreted from an activated macrophage or can be secreted from a T helper 1 cell. So we get that the resting NK cell becomes primed to give rise to both the activatory receptor ligand and the inhibitory receptors. Now, in presence of specifically IL-18, further activation occurs. Specifically in the presence of IL-18, further activation is seen in the case of NK cells. So as you can see, in presence of IL-18, we are seeing two categories of cell. One is that it depends on the further stimuli, that if the healthy cells are expressing their MHC class 1 molecules, then the inhibitory receptors bind, as you can see. So if the healthy cells are binding with the MHC class 1 molecule, so this is a primed NK cell. This NK cell is ready to act, but it starts scanning. And if the healthy cells are capable of interacting with the inhibitory receptor, as you can see, the signaling blocks the ARAL signaling mechanism. However, if the cells are already infected and are unable to display, are already infected and they do not display the MHC class 1 molecule, no signaling occurs through here, and we can see the signal transduction mechanism. So one thing should be very clear from this picture is that activation receptors only work and only can transduce signals in absence of the inhibitory receptor signaling. If by any chance there is a bit of signaling passing through the inhibitory receptors, they are switched off. So this is an exclusive function of the activating receptors. They act totally and exclusively in the absence of the signals percolating through the inhibitory receptors. So once they're activated, you can see it's ultimately apoptotic death for the NK cells. So that was about the natural killer cells and the mechanisms of death induced by the natural killer cells. And with this, I come to the end of the discussion of all those cells which I had not taken up in the earlier classes or in the preliminary classes. So we have completed a discussion of most of the cells of the lymphoid tissue because they form a very big arm of defense of both the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. We'll now move on to the next part of our lecture, that is immunity against pathogens. Now, talking about pathogens, infectious disease leads to about 14 million human deaths annually. Now, these diseases are caused by basically 6 categories of pathogens: the extracellular bacteria, the intracellular bacteria, the viruses, parasites, fungi, and prions. Now, what does the term infection denote? Infection occurs when an organism successfully avoids innate defenses and colonizes a niche in the body. So they have evaded the innate defenses and have somehow been successful to start an initial colony within the body. Now, if the replication of the pathogen results in detectable clinical damage, then the host experiences the phenomena known as disease. So a preliminary infection is a colonizing of the pathogen in our body. When the pathogen multiplies to give a phenotypic expression of a pathogen multiplies to give a expression level which can be externally observed. That is, we can observe that the person, the host, is not normal, not behaving normal, having some kind of immune reaction, then we would consider that he is suffering from a disease. As a result of infection followed by disease, what may happen? Immunopathic damage may occur if host tissues are unintentionally injured by the immune response as it tries to destroy a pathogen. This is very important. So when we think of controlling the pathogen, the immune reaction starts and the immune reaction gradually aggravates. A time comes when the antigenic load from the body is more or less destroyed, but the hyperactivated immune cell takes time to get destroyed. At that time, we might have autoimmune diseases because the immune cells then starts attacking our own cells. So this is an immunopathic damage. So in case of COVID, because that is a disease we are currently seeing, you can assume that death or the lung cells are suffering an immunopathic damage. Coming to the general features of a host pathogen encounter. Now let me just give this is the major mechanism of innate defenses against pathogens. So we can have intact skin, pattern recognition receptors, NK cells, the gamma delta T cells, the natural killer T cells, the neutrophils, the complement, and the antigen presentation by the dendritic cells. So this is roping in the adaptive immunity in the later stages. So these cells are mainly the major players of the innate immunity. But what happens one after another, if we think about it, first, the obstacle that is encountered by an invader is the intact skin and the mucosa. Pathogens are prevented from entering the skin by the toughness and the routine shedding of the keratin layers protecting the dermis. So the keratin layers gives a basic protection. Pathogens ingested into the gut or inhaled into the respiratory tract are trapped by mucose or succumb to microbicidal molecules in the body secretions or the low pH and the hydrolysis of the gut. So we have a basic defense mechanism. The basic defense mechanism is the intact skin, and the basic defense mechanism is the intact mucosa. However, if there is a lapse in the immune defense, opportunistic pathogens may enter, or invasive pathogens may enter even when the body's defenses are intact. So if the defenses are breached in some manner, it is opportunistic pathogens that are entering, or if we are seeing a pathogen infection, even though we are having an intact surface, then invasive pathogens have entered. Now, so a pathogen has entered. Now what happens? The pathogen that penetrates the skin or the mucose, because these are the main important entry points of pathogens. So the pathogens that have entered the skin or the mucose penetrates the skin, triggering a host of acute phase proteins, pro-inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin-1 and TNF-alpha. Coating of the pathogens by the C3b or by mannose binding lectin facilitates its elimination by the alternative or the lectin complement cascades. So just immediately after a pathogen is entering, there is a host of acute phase proteins, pro-inflammatory cytokines liberated. Not only that, the C3b now acts as an opsonine, or the mannose binding lectin facilitates in the complement mediated lysis of the pathogen. So that might happen at the cellular level. At the cellular level, the innate defense is mediated by the pattern recognition receptors of the resident dendritic cells, neutrophils, and other granulocytes, macrophages, NK cells, gamma delta T cells, and NKT cells. So these are the different innate immunity cells which then come to play. The pattern recognition receptors includes the TLRs, NLRs, RLRs, CLRs, scavenger receptors, and cell-bound collectins, as well as the antigen receptors of the natural killer cells, the NKT cells, natural killer cells, NKT cells, and the gamma delta T cells. So Since these cells also play a role in the innate immunity, so the antigens recognized by them also belong to the pattern recognition receptors. So at the cellular level, these cells play an important role by recognition of the antigen via the PAR. In addition, soluble collectins in the extracellular matrix that may have bound to pathogens or their products may activate, complement, or stimulate phagocytosis. So the collectins of the ECM also play a role in immunity. So this is what happens at the cellular level. Now again, let us imagine in the site of pathogen attack, local leukocytes activated by PRR eliminate the pathogen or the infected cell by clathrin-mediated endocytosis or phagocytosis, secretion of cytotoxic cytokines, or perforin granzyme-mediated cytotoxicity. These cells also contribute to toxic NO and ROI to the extracellular milieu. So a lot of CTL functions is brought in, and as I said, the macrophages are activated and NO and ROI are also roped in. Chemokines are produced in the ensuing inflammatory response that brings neutrophils and other leukocytes from the circulation into the area of infection. So now gradually the systemic part of the immune system is being brought in. From the blood, cells are now moving into the area of inflammation. So this is a gradual process that happens if the pathogen enters via the skin or via the mucosal surface. Now, if the pathogen enters the blood, then the immediate innate defense is taken up by the monocytes and the neutrophils in the circulation. Organisms that reach the liver or the spleen are confronted by resident macrophages. So, depending on the pathogen's entry via the skin, via the mucous, or in the blood, different innate immunity cells are gradually being roped in. So keep in mind, it is always the cells of the innate immunity that gives us a first-hand protection in any case, be it at the epidermal level or be it in the systemic level. Now, as the innate immunity proceeds, so the innate immunity has taken up, local dendritic cells that have matured due to exposure of the exposure to the pathogen components become competent to present pathogen-derived peptide MHC to naive T cells, triggering the adaptive response. So when the pathogen enters the blood and they are taken to the liver and the spleen, there are the resident dendritic cells. If the pathogen has entered into the site of the skin, they are the resident dendritic cells. They take up the pathogen, and once they present the pathogen along with MHC complex, then only the adaptive response is triggered. In many cases, B cell activation and subsequent B cell activation takes place, and they move into the inductive sites. If you remember the definition of inductive sites, the sites where that antigens accesses. They move to the inductive sites in the malt or the salt, and the effector cells generated will migrate to the effector sites at the body's portals to fight the pathogen. A systemic immune response will soon follow if mature dendritic cells bearing pathogen antigens migrate to lymphoid follicles or spleen and activate naive T and B cells. So as you can see, first it is the cells of the innate immunity, and only after the macrophages or the resident macrophages or the dendritic cells takes up the antigen and presents it complexed with the dendritic cells present and presented complexed with the peptide MAC complexes, then only the adaptive immune system is brought into action. So this is what actually happens when the pathogen enters the body. If it enters through skin and mucosa, one kind of scenario, but whatever the scenario is, first of all, it is always a local production of cytokine, followed by bringing in the cells of the innate immunity, followed by activating the dendritic cell, local dendritic cells, followed by the antigen uptake by the dendritic cells and presentation of the antigen by the dendritic cells to the cells of the adaptive immunity, followed by the activation of the adaptive immunity. So this is a stepwise procedure of the immune mechanism that happens whenever a pathogen attacks.